Hello, my name is Patricia Solis. I am Associate Research Professor of Geography in ASU's School for Geographical Science and Urban Planning, and I'm the Executive Director of the Knowledge Exchange for Resilience. Today, I want to talk to you about 10 things that you can do to make your research proposal more competitive. As scientists and researchers, increasingly we turn to external funding that is coming from outside our home organizations to be able to supplement the kinds of work that we do, and sometimes to show that our ideas are competitive and that they matter. So I have been a principal investigator on more than 50 competitively won research proposals, and I've learned a lot through that process. Today I want to share you my top 10 tips so that you can make your proposals more competitive and win too. The first thing that I would say you need to do is to start with a good problem. A good problem is one that is very focused, it is very specific, and it's precise. It's not a very general, complex world problem that cannot be solved, because your research proposal is supposed to be answering that problem. You may or may not solve it, but you're supposed to be responding to it. Every good problem has some kind of drama, some kind of mystery, some kind of enigma, or at least you should be able to communicate that. What is it about your problem that is puzzling? What is confusing? How can you set up the articulation of your problem with respect to these kinds of things in the world that we need to know? What is already known about the problem? What have other people tried to answer about the problem, but we just haven't gotten there? But also make sure that in your research proposal, you state the problem and then state immediately the question that you're asking about that problem. Also, don't forget to use a question mark. I've read many research proposals, and in 50 pages, 20 pages, there may be 0 question marks. Just using the question mark and formulating your problem as a question can help you generate curiosity with your reviewers. So start with a good problem. The second piece of advice that I have for you is that you should try to create the right fit. That's the fit between where you see your work contributing to the body of knowledge and what your funding agency that you've identified you want to write to wants to accomplish. Now, there's many ways to do this. It doesn't mean that you have to completely change your idea to fit the call for proposals or the reference matter of the agency or the foundation that you're aiming for. You don't have to completely make your problem fit into a round box when you're trying to be a square peg. So you can design that fit. Study the funding agency so you understand what it is that they are after, and then try to make those connections between your work and theirs. It's not spin, but do contextualize. Find what those linkages are between what the funding agency really wants to do and what you want to do. Sometimes that's a shared mission. Sometimes that is shared constituents. Sometimes you have to build that link between their shared constituents and your intended research subjects. For example, maybe your agency is interested in elderly and the problems of people who are aging in the country, and you're interested in young people. Then you should design your proposal in a way that puts those two constituents together. You could also find the right fit by finding what they're interested in terms of communicating your work. Maybe there is a special compendium or dissemination venue that your agency prefers, and then you can build that into your research proposal so that your work fits better with the mission of the organization. With all of these ideas, and there are many more, you really should do your homework. Every different agency is different. Even among federal agencies, the NSF, National Science Foundation, is different than the NIH, National Institutes of Health, different from the EPA. All of them have their own idiosyncrasies and personalities, and there's nothing like getting to know that organization so that you can put your work into their context. That's your job in the proposal. That doesn't mean that you're compromising your research. It just means that you're communicating in the language and in the way that fits their goals. The third piece of advice that I'd like to give you is to assemble a winning team. We cannot do research that's important and matters these days without some help. Nobody is doing this as an individual scientist. In fact, there's a trend towards increasingly developing scientific teams. So it's important that you think that through. Even if you're going to be the leader of the proposal, who should be on your team? It's a really important question. Think of it as seriously as if you were hiring this person, because you're going to be working together if you do get the funding, which I hope you do. To assemble the right team, make sure that everybody on your team has a purpose, make sure that they know what they're doing, that there are no bad apples. You also want to think about how they are working together. Maybe to you it makes sense to put one individual on one aspect of your work and another individual on another, but do they also work together as a group? And if you're not as experienced with writing the proposals, assembling that team can actually help you write a competitive proposal. You can tap into the experience and the skills of your team members. You can get advice from them along the way. Perhaps you would like to learn something from an aspiring mentor for you, and you can invite them to be a part of a proposal. This is all part of the work of aspiring to be a successful academic. And the proposal writing process is not necessarily just a way to get funding for your work. It can also be a way for you to solidify your collaborations and your colleagues and access mentors. So assemble a winning team and make sure that everyone on your team has purpose. The fourth piece of advice I'd like to give you is to think about how you design your research project in a way that will make sure that you can deliver it. There are many different techniques to do this. Timelines, budgets, resources, and then your deliverables. These are the products that you're going to share with your funding agency at the very end. But don't overpromise. It's not very useful to have a proposal that is seeking to bite off a big problem, but you don't have the tools or the design to actually accomplish that. You need to make sure that the tools and the products that you're creating really fit the problem. Also, I would suggest thinking about more creative deliverables than just research products. That will help expand your ability to connect back to the agencies and create that right fit is through your deliverables. Maybe you want to include an op-ed in addition to a standard research paper. Maybe you would like to create a guest lecture course for a high school. These are also ways that you can create that broader impact, but make sure that you can accomplish this in the time and with the resources that the proposal is aiming to get you. Because reviewers can tell if you're over-promising or under-delivering, they will know it in the proposal stage. Fifth, be perfectly persuasive. Now, as scholars and scientists, we are used to caveat our research findings and saying, what are the limitations of the work that we did? Because we are very careful scientists and scholars. But at the proposal stage, do not be hesitant. Clearly and persuasively communicate what you're going to do. You are going to accomplish this. Don't use language like, we hope to solve this problem, we hope to deliver this product, we hope to answer this question. No, we will address this issue, we will find this answer, and that confident kind of language is very persuasive. Don't be tentative. The other thing I would like to say about being perfectly persuasive is about that perfection part of it. You cannot afford to have mistakes in your proposal. Always get someone else to look through it, read over it, proofread over it, and that means making sure that you have enough time to write and finish writing it. Because there's nothing that irritates a reviewer more than finding mistakes, finding inconsistencies, misnumbered kinds of lists, grammatical errors. That just really irritates reviewers, and then they will have a bad impression of you and your science, even though that might be wrong. Just remember that reviewers look through a couple of dozen papers, perhaps if they're on a panel. And so yours has to stick out, and yours needs to be persuasive and without errors.